What's up everybody, Wofty Wild here with another Lightroom tutorial for you guys. We're going through the second part of editing the Kruger Park pictures. So we've finished culling them, we've finished cropping them, and we're ready to get into the development module. So we're going to be working with basic settings today, just talking you through my work and what I do when I'm editing my pictures. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start off in our basic module. In the development mode, we're going to start looking at the histogram, and what we want to look for is not too many whites and not too many darks. So on these far areas, and we want to look for a nice bowl-shaped curve, exactly like we've got in this image. Not too many lights here, but we can sort that out while we're editing. So let's get started. We're going to start in the basic module, as I said, and we're going to start off looking at the color balance. So how warm is it and how cold is it? And this is mainly on feel and how you want the image to look. I like a more warmer image. We're going to get onto the exposure now, and that's how light and dark we want the image to be. Most of these I go on how I feel about the image and what I want. I look at the bottom here. I don't worry too much about the skies. We'll get to how I'm going to handle the skies just now. So we're just worried about the grass and the river in this photograph. So the highlights will bring back a tiny bit of detail, and the shadows will lift any darkness under these trees here. The whites, we're going to hold Alt when we work whites and blacks, and that's going to show you what's blown out and what isn't blown out. So we don't want any detail blown out on the whites there, so we'll go back to so nothing's highlighted when you're holding that Alt key. On the black, same thing, hold the Alt key, you can see what is too black or totally black, and you can watch the histogram as you drag this over. It'll highlight when you do get too much black in the image, and you can pull that back so we don't go too far. Clarity, I like to add quite a bit of clarity into my images, just gives it a bit of punch, and you can also add a bit of vibrance. This just brings out the colors and really makes the picture nice and punchy. The tint, I don't like to play the tint too much, but I will maybe add 2 or 3 degrees either way. Just if it's too green, I'll bring it back to the pink a bit, but most of the time I'll leave that alone. So on the gradient here, the graduated filter, we're going to pull down just for the sky. So we're just covering the sky there, and we're going to adjust the sky separately because it's normally too bright and blown out like this. We want a bit more blue and we want more detail in those clouds. So we're going to pull that so it's on the horizon and balance it out, and just bring the exposure down a bit. That'll bring a bit more detail. And dehaze. Dehaze is a really cool tool that just brings out the punchiness in the clouds and brings a bit of blue back. If I change the color balance here, this also brings a bit more blue into it, but I actually want a warmer morning feel for this. That's perfect. See how the dehaze there brings out the blue. I really like this tool. I use it quite a bit. Just watch you don't go too much there. It does blow the clouds out a bit. And the blacks just brings a bit more punchy into the blue. If you do ever need to go back and you make an error here, you can double click on these sliders and it'll go back to what it was originally. It really is all about your feeling and how the image feels for you. And this is very, very much a creative thing. So it's whatever suits you. And then to finish off, you can just click that graduated filter and it disappears again. So I just want to change the crop a tiny bit just to pull those rocks out there so it doesn't focus on that. Gives it a nice even feel. Okay, we're going to go down to the Effects tab now and add a bit of a vignette. This just makes the corners quite nice and dark and draws your attention into the middle of the image. And I think that's going to end us off there. Don't ever overdo this vignette. It can look really terrible if you do overdo it a bit too much. So to have a look at your changes, just hit the backslash key and that'll take you back to your original image. You can see the changes that you have made. Quite a nice punchy image now. Really like that. Let's head on to the next photo. Okay, back to the basics. And we're going to have a look at this one. I think I like color photographs, but I like one or two black ones. So I think we're going to do this in black and white. Let's change it over. And when I do my black and white photographs, I really like to punch up the contrast so you can really see the difference there. So our subject is quite dark in this image, so we're going to push everything else quite light. We have got quite a nice histogram here, but I'm going to push most of the stuff over the mid-range there. So most of the water and most of those reflections will be white, but I'm mainly worried about my subject and how dark this little duckling is. Not as many adjustments to do when you're on black and white, but I like to increase a lot of clarity, a lot of contrast, and make it a really, really nice punchy image, and really use those ripples to show a nice definition of the image. Playing with our black and white sliders will also help with the contrast and just spread those images. Remember, hitting the Alt key to check the whites and also the Alt key to check the blacks. So we can add quite a lot of black here. See, we're not too dark, but there it is on the duckling's neck. We're hitting some dark patches. Just going to slightly adjust the angle here. Change it a bit. Let's head down to the effects tab again, and we're going to add a bit of darkness with the vignette on the edges. See, if you do overdo it, it looks really terrible if you go too dark, so we're just going to pull that back a bit so it's not overdone, but it does bring your focus to the middle and onto the duckling. And then we're going to hit that backslash key to check the original and see we're happy with the changes that we've made. This is just a nice way to review the changes that you made and to check you're happy with everything. Another thing you can just add a tiny bit is on the detail here. You can sharpen a tiny bit. It's quite nice for birds and feathers. I use it quite a bit to sharpen the detail there. I'm very chuffed with this image of this beautiful rhinoceros. And this is a really nice shot through the grass where he's just lifting his head up and having a look at us. So I'm going to work with the color balance here. It is quite a warm image already, but I'm really chuffed with this bowl-shaped curve on the histogram and how nice it looks. Just bring it in a tiny bit here so we don't have so much background there. I really want the focus to be drawn into his little eye just looking up at you there. Really, really lazy guy lying in the mud here. So rhinos and elephants are really nice. You can get a lot of detail and contrast in their skin, but you need to be very, very, very careful when you're taking the photographs that you don't blow out any detail. So I always like to take these guys on -0.3 or -0.7 settings on my camera, just so the photograph is captured a tiny bit darker, and then we can always lighten it as I have here in this image when we pull it through. So remember on the black and white, hitting that Alt key just so you can check, and holding it down while you're dragging that slider to check where. So his ears are mainly the dark area here, and we can just darken it a bit. That looks a bit better, a bit more detail, a bit more punchy coming out of there. Remember, when you do adjust the exposure, just check these white and black sliders, because that is going to change as you move that exposure down. So you do almost fight against yourself here, but just check and fiddle until you're happy. See how the clarity brings out nice those wrinkles on his face and his neck. Love that detail in the rhinos. Bit of punchiness in the color. We don't want too much. Want to keep the attention on him. Tiny bit of vignette, not too much here. The grass almost creates a bit for us on this side. But see how there's a lot of detail in the background here. The grass is really sharp. So we're going to use our brush tool here. And what I like to do is just make it big to start if we're doing a big area. And if you're unsure of where you've gone over, just click on the bottom here and you can show the areas that you have highlighted. So you can see where I've gone over on the brush tool here, and I can get really nice and close to the subject. So the reason why I like to do this is just to blur areas of the image where you don't want the image to be completely sharp, so we can keep our client's focus on the subject that we want. If you do end up going over, so like here I've gone over his ear a bit, we can always come back and erase that, so don't worry too much about that. We can always come back and edit what we've gone over there. So I like to start with a really big brush and just cover most of the area that we need to, and then we can come back and make changes with a smaller brush. So you just resize the brush, make it smaller, and then you can add more detail in the smaller areas where you don't want to go over the edges. So you can make adjustments while you're working, and you can always add areas to the brush detail as you go through it. So I just like to soften it a bit here to show a bit of blur. So you just have a tiny bit less detail there, and you'll see areas that you haven't covered will show up straight away. I'm going to actually blur everything that is around this rhinoceros to keep all the focus on him, and I'll be back with you once I have finished that. Okay, now that we're all done there, just have a little look at the original image and back to here. Really happy with those changes. Nice punchy image now and a lot of focus on the rhino. This is a very nice landscape shot with the view with our guard here, where one of the places in the Kruger National Park where we're allowed to get out the vehicle and walk around, having the guard for safety. So really grateful to these guys for being there for us and helping us out. It's awesome what they do for the park and all the visitors. So landscapes are quite simple. Just like to get the colors nice and punchy, get a bit of detail there, and we like to have most of it in focus. I am going to punch out the sky quite nicely. It's a really nice cloudy blue day, and I really want to bring out a lot of definition and make that really blue. So we're going to use the dehaze mostly and the clarity to bring out a bit there. But that's really beautiful. Check out how nice and blue that comes. Just a bit of clarity as well. Makes it a really nice image. Not going to do too much here. I like to keep my landscapes fairly simple. What you can do, and I've done it already here, is you can copy settings in Lightroom. Once you've got a few images that are taken in the same setting, you can copy in the bottom left here, you can copy the settings and then paste them onto another image. So that's what I've done with this eagle here, and I'll show you how to do it. Yeah, so we go copy the settings, and then the next image we just paste the exact same settings. So don't freak out, you can still make changes after you have pasted settings. So like this image is a tiny bit too light, and we're going to still crop over this image. I think it's a tiny bit too far out, so we're going to bring that exposure down. That's much better. And I really like the detail in this old dead tree that this roller is sitting on. just edge out a few of the changes. So what is nice about pasting settings is you can just make small changes so it doesn't take you as long to edit and really cuts down on your editing time, which is really what we are looking for. So I think it's quite a nice image now. Don't want it to be too punchy and start looking fake, but I do want to crop in a tiny bit closer here. Get the bird a bit bigger in our final image. Remember that rule of thirds we still want to keep. But that's a really cool picture. And as we go through these images, it should take us quicker and quicker to finish the editing. So we're going to paste from the last one. Even though it's a completely different photo, we can use most of the settings and the changes that we've made. So with the zebras, a good old-fashioned black and white is really cool. And this is what I was taking this image for. I really wanted a nice headshot of the zebra and just get that into black and white. So you can make some of the changes in color. Sometimes it's quite nice to do that. And then we can go and change it into black. So we're really going to get that contrast nice and high, that clarity nice and high, get that black part of the zebra really punchy, and that shows a really nice high contrast image. Remember, we're always referring back to the histogram to have a look at it. We're going to add the brush tool here again and just blur a bit of this grass a tiny bit more. This will just bring more and more focus into the zebra. Once I'm finished blurring, I will be back with you. Great, so now that we finished blurring the background there, we're just going to make a few adjustments just to get it nice and blurry and almost get you to forget about that background. Okay, so as we get along here, we can just paste an image and obviously make sure you're not in the brush tool here. So we're just going to minimize this brush tool. Back to the basics and get that exposure down. And I'm actually quite happy with most of those settings. So you can see how close we're getting to the final image as soon as we paste it. Very happy with how most of these just small changes that we're going to make, and that's mainly on how you feel about the image. Just a little before and after there, very happy with those changes. Paste, and look how close we're getting. Really small minor adjustments that we're going to make here, but otherwise I'm very happy with those settings that we have made. As we get further and further along in this editing process, we're saving ourselves as much time as possible. I love these shots that I got of this beautiful big bull elephant. I love the detail that you can get in their wrinkled skin, especially after this guy had a mud bath and he had dried out. So we've got all this nice dry mud on his ears, showing nice crinkles. So definitely black and white for most of these, especially these nice up close face shots. Remember, we're always going to look back at our histogram and see that, try to get as close as we can to that bowl shaped. Really nice mid-tones here. Hitting that Alt key just to check we're not blowing anything out on the white or the black side. And that'll really bring out that nice contrast that we want to show those wrinkles. I really like his little pierced ear here, so I don't want to straighten too much and lose that little piercing, probably from an old fight. But I really think that makes a lot of his character, so I want to try to keep that in the image as much as possible. Really chuffed with how this has turned out. And onto the big boy, a nice little wide shot of him walking towards us. he was really, really nice and relaxed. So pasting those settings, a little too bright for me, so I'm going to bring that down a bit. Keep it quite nice and warm. But definitely going to bring this exposure down a bit. That's much better. Don't want to blow out any of the detail. Don't want to lose too much blue in the sky there. But I really like how I've been able to separate him from the bush. So this is one of the things I try to do when taking them, is you try to get your angle as low as possible, especially if the animal's on a hill. So you can almost get them above the background, and this brings that nice separation and gives them the main feature within the image. So always try and get as low as you can in your vehicle. I know there's not a lot of movement that you can get in the vehicle, but it's always nice to get these low shots when the animals are walking towards us. So a guy was scurrying across the dirt road, but I love how the red in their eyes really bring out everything. And it turned out to be a really nice sharp image, beautiful feathers. And I really like the dusty, dry feel that this brings to it. We have had a lot of dry weather in the Kruger Park, so this really tells a good story about how dry everything is. Just making slight adjustments from the settings that we've pasted. You can always zoom in and just check you're happy with the detail and how it's come out. This was a really, really cool shot. Spotted this little guy up in the tree with a snake in his talons. With a little leguan or a little lizard, could have been. But I was really chuffed with how he turned around and was not impressed by us just having a look at him when he was about to tuck into his lunch. I just want to lighten his face up a bit here, so using the spot adjustment again and just getting rid of these dark shadows on his eyes. Remember, eyes are probably your most important part of the subject. You can always click that view overlay to check that you are brushing over the correct areas. It's going to be a very, very minor adjustment. You don't want to make huge adjustments with this. Just very, very small slight changes just to bring out his face and to lighten that up a bit. But I love these birds. They look really, really cool in photos. Undo that and let's just lighten that up. So we're going to pull the exposure up a bit and throw in a bit of shadows. So lighten those shadows up just to bring a bit of his expression, his unimpressed look with us. But you don't want to overdo it, then the eyes start looking a bit fake. And I'm pretty happy with that. Very chuffed with how that's turned out there. See how nice and punchy his face is now, that before and after. Very cool image. We had a very unhappy hippopotamus having a go at us here. Not happy we were in his area. But really, really cool how he was coming upstream and it created these waves behind him as he was running in the water. So really nice capture of his aggression and how unimpressed he was with us. But very nice bowl-shaped histogram here, as you can see, really cool colors with the late afternoon sun on his face here. So very minor adjustments here, very small changes. But I really, really like this image. So we've got the exact same image, same lighting here, so we can paste our settings and we don't actually need to make any changes there. Very happy with that. Beautiful giant kingfisher came and landed right in front of us here, and we had a really nice big space behind him before the background hit. So I try to get as low as possible and it blurred out the background. You want to keep your aperture as low as you can in these instances so you really get the subject nice and sharp and that blurry background. We don't even need to do any spot adjustment on the background here because we had so much distance between this giant kingfisher and the background. So pasting those images, very, very small changes and very chuffed with that. Very cool image. I really, really love these kingfishers. They're probably my favorite bird. This little squirrel was really cute, running up and down this little stick, but it was in very bright, overcast conditions, so we did have very, very bright background, but really cool with him leaning over the edge here. Very small changes in detail. We just don't want to blow out too much of the background here. Very small changes. Just going to change the crop a tiny bit here. Just want to make sure that he's nice and symmetrical in this image, but I like having a lot of water in front of this hippo leading up to him to show that he's almost hiding from us. But I'm quite pedantic about my angles, something that I have been blessed with, but it does make the image look really nice when you get that angle right. Okay, remember we're still pasting all our settings here, so these were taken at the same dam, so I know that they were quite close and very happy with how they've turned out. I like to try them in black and white, but I think I'm actually going to keep this one in color. And on to our last image, nice little LBJ sitting on the branch, got nice and low here and blurred the background really nicely, so he comes out really nice and punchy. But we're going to paste those settings and very, very minor changes. And then we're all done, and I'll take you through a quick run through of all the finished images, and I hope you enjoyed this Lightroom tutorial. If you would like to try Lightroom out, please click the link below in the description. Please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Lightroom tips and tricks coming your way. Wofty Wild out. Thanks so much for watching this video. Share the love by liking this video and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.